In 1993, a private jet lands in Gary, Indiana, a struggling steel town 30 miles from Chicago with shuttered factories lining the lake. The man stepping off the plane is Donald Trump, and he's here to pitch the city on a floating casino. He promises a real peach of a project, well-paying jobs filled largely by local minority residents, tens of millions of dollars flowing into city coffers every single year. City officials, desperate for anything that looks like a lifeline, sign off. 12 years later, Trump's casino company is in bankruptcy. His stake in the boat gets sold off to another operator, and Gary is still one of the poorest cities in America, with more than a third of its residents living in poverty today. This isn't a one-off story. It's a pattern. It's happened in Detroit, in East St. Louis, in a dozen other towns that made the exact same bet. This is how a single casino can wreck the local economy it was supposed to save, and the data behind it explains why the story keeps repeating. Here's how it's pitched. Almost every time, a casino developer arrives in a town with a shrinking tax base and a downtown that's seen better days. The offer? Thousands of jobs, tens of millions in new tax revenue, tourists driving in from out of state to spend money the town wouldn't otherwise see. No new taxes on residents, no new municipal debt, just a private company building a giant building and handing the town a check. On paper, it looks like free money. Local governments say yes constantly. Since the 1990s, casinos have landed in places like Gary, Detroit, East St. Louis, and Atlantic City, nearly all of them distressed, deindustrialized towns looking for exactly this kind of lifeline. But the pitch skips the one question that actually determines whether any of it works. Where is that casino money actually coming from? Economists call it the substitution effect, and it's the core reason casino economics disappoint so often. Most of the money spent inside a casino isn't new spending entering the local economy, it's spending that used to happen somewhere else, inside that same town, the restaurant downtown, the bowling alley, the movie theater, the local bar. A resident who used to spend $50 going out to dinner and a show now spends that $50 at the slot machine instead. No new economic activity got created, it just moved from one business to another. And unlike the restaurant, which was locally owned and recirculated its profit through the town, the casino sends most of that money somewhere else entirely. That somewhere else matters more than people assume. Most casinos are owned by large regional or national operators, not local businesses. Profits get sent back to shareholders and corporate headquarters, often in a completely different state. So the town isn't just losing the $50 that used to go to the local restaurant. It's losing the version of that $50 that used to stay in town and circulate through other local businesses. Atlantic City is the clearest long-run case study because for its first 14 years, it ran casino gambling as a total regional monopoly east of the Mississippi. Research published in the Journal of Urban Economics tracked what happened during that monopoly period, and the results were genuinely strong. Employment rose 26%, wages rose 9%, household income rose 5%, home prices rose 19%, all within 5 years. That's the version of the casino story that gets told in every pitch meeting. But the same research also tracked what happened after the monopoly ended, once casinos opened elsewhere along the East Coast. Wages in Atlantic City fell 7%, income fell 8%. The lesson buried in that data is simple, and it's the one nobody puts on the brochure. A casino can genuinely grow a local economy, but only as long as it's pulling real, outside money that wouldn't otherwise exist. The moment it becomes just one option among many, competing with casinos in the next state or the next county, it stops growing the pie and starts fighting over the same shrinking slice. That's exactly where the U.S. casino industry sits today. By 2024, Atlantic City's 9 casinos were posting year-over-year profit declines for 3 consecutive years, even as New York, Pennsylvania, and other neighboring markets kept expanding their own casino footprints. The city's population, once well over 40,000, has fallen to roughly 35,000, a drop of more than 12% from its peak. The monopoly that once built the town is long gone, and the competition it created never stopped growing. There's a second layer to this that rarely makes it in the initial pitch. A widely cited study tracked personal bankruptcy filings in 8 U.S. counties that legalized casino gambling in the 1990s, comparing each one to a similar county without a casino. Filings rose in 7 of the 8, a statistically significant jump in 5 of them. A separate study, using data through 2005, found something even more specific. In a casino's first year of operation, the local bankruptcy rate rises by more than 9% compared to similar non-casino counties. That effect eases somewhat over the next few years before climbing again around year 8. In other words, this isn't a short-term adjustment period the town simply grows out of. It's a recurring financial cost built into the casino's presence for as long as it stays open. Those bankruptcies and the problem gambling behind a meaningful share of them translate directly into demand on local courts, social services, and addiction treatment programs. Costs the casino itself never pays for. The town does, usually out of the same municipal budget the casino's tax revenue was supposed to strengthen in the first place. Back in Gary, in 2021, a new operator, Hard Rock, opened a casino in the city promising roughly 1,000 jobs and, once again, a real shot at reversing decades of decline. It's the third time in 30 years Gary has been told a casino would be the turning point. Even the city's own mayoral candidate at the time publicly acknowledged that Gary had heard this exact pitch before. The jobs a casino creates are real: dealers, servers, security, housekeeping, but they concentrate heavily at the lower end of the wage scale. The higher-paying corporate and executive roles, the ones that actually rebuild a local tax base, almost always stay at company headquarters, usually in a different state entirely. So a town ends up with employment numbers that look good in a press release without the kind of income growth that rebuilds a downtown or reduces poverty in any meaningful way. It's worth being precise here because the picture isn't identical everywhere. Tribal casinos operated by Native American governments under federal law don't follow quite the same pattern. Because the operating entity is the tribal government itself, a much larger share of the profit gets reinvested locally into healthcare, education, and infrastructure for tribal communities, rather than extracted to an out-of-state shareholder base. It's the clearest evidence for the underlying theory. When casino profit actually stays local, the local economic outcome looks meaningfully different. Commercial casinos, owned by outside operators and answering to outside shareholders, almost never work this way. So if the long-run economics are this shaky, why do towns keep saying yes? Because the benefits are immediate and visible. Jobs on opening day, a headline about new tax revenue, a ribbon cutting with local officials standing on stage in front of the cameras. The costs, the substitution effect quietly draining nearby businesses, the rising bankruptcy rate, the addiction treatment bills, show up gradually, spread out over years, and are easy to attribute to something else entirely: a bad economy, a national recession, changing consumer habits. By the time the full picture becomes clear, as now has for places like Gary and Atlantic City, the officials who approved the original deal have usually moved on to the next project, the next ribbon cutting, the next pitch that sounds exactly like the last one. A casino isn't a growth engine for a struggling town. Under the right, narrow conditions, a genuine regional monopoly, real outside tourism dollars, it can be. But that version barely exists anymore. What's left in most of the country is a redistribution machine. It takes spending, jobs, and tax revenue that already existed nearby, concentrates them inside one building, largely owned by an outside company, and spreads the hidden costs across the rest of the town. Gary bet on this story in 1993 with Trump. It bet on this story again in 2021 with Hard Rock. Somewhere right now, another struggling town's local government is sitting across the table from a developer hearing the exact same pitch and being told, again, that this time it'll be different.